people. They're a bunch of Christian murdering scum running giant death factories, keeping babies alive and selling their body parts. What more do you need to know about these people? I have to go out and face these scum. They literally crawl out from under rocks. They have green looking skin.
Something rarely talked about and rarely acceptable in public discourse is the problem of the absorbent and spongy womb man. So the womb man is physically designed to absorb the male essence. She's basically what in ancient times, up until 100 years ago, was something that was even a miracle, something like a great companion, somebody that would give you children, and you would exert your energy to her and she would give you back something even greater. Today, we're in a much different situation. We have so many cucks in the government and in society that these women now can call on many, many other men and powerful men to take away your rights, to gang up on you, and to shame you for being a man, and to make you subservient to any woman who has your children or who otherwise gives you access to her slime cave. So it's no longer feasible to be having children. It's simply not feasible or a realistic gamble in life when all of society, all of the world is not supporting you, when you want to be a traditional father, you want to have many children. So I would say if you're a nationalist, it's the strategy point that we are at right now is not getting married, having children. That's not the strategy. That's not the best strategy for our people, our nation. It's not the best strategy because the second you have these children, this horde of cucks come raining down on you with a SWAT team, with policemen, with the court system. And so the modern woman who isn't all that womanly anymore and is not proud to be a woman, she's not humble in her role as a woman. She's no longer, virgin. She doesn't keep her chastity before marriage. These women have already demonstrated that they are not capable of fidelity and that they are less womanly than women from 100 years ago. And with the advent of these men who are working against you in your own society, you do not have that option anymore. We have to take control of our country, of our nation. Politically, we have to take that control back before we can start thinking about regenerating everything physically. So basically, first comes the war, second comes the booty. That's basically what you have to understand. There's an order to that. And so in this society, even a woman who is virgin and traditional enough in the first stage for life could change at any second because the entire society in which you live is gynocentric and it will smash you. She could steal your house and she could take away your children. She can murder your children. Abortion is a concept that is only for women. They don't give men the right to murder their own children. But a woman today has the right to literally chop your children up into pieces and, suck them out with a vacuum hose or whatever. And so Why would you do that? Why would you subject yourself to this enormous, enormous risk? And the drain on your energy is not just physical. This is very important. If you look up NoFap, a very stupid thing to do is to go into left hand or evil tantra, which means that you are sexing with a woman, practicing sex so much that you supposedly can hold in your own crotch vomit and keep it in. That's what they say. They say keep it in, keep in that essence. Number one, your essence is not physical, and it's mostly spiritual. If anything, it's mental, and then it goes to the physical level. And two, the female is not just going to lay down for you and you practice 200 times all of your ideas, all of your techniques, or your things like that. So turn off that part of your brain, the addiction voice, the demon that's talking to you in your head, trying to give you an excuse to play with a woman, and be free of all that. Be free of this evil influence in your life, this evil force that is designed to drain your energy in every way. It's not just the 2 minutes you spend literally doing something with that person. It's everything around that. How did you end up in that situation? How did you get there? It takes a lot of energy, a lot of planning. And if you still think this traditional marriage is a possibility, then you are going to be thinking every day of your life, maybe very often every day, about what your standards are, who is a woman in town that might fit these standards, or you're spending all this spiritual energy trying to design a character in your world dream that is not going to be the way you made her. It's not going to be the way you really wanted it. And so let's get into some statistics about the modern female. Yeah, the modern female, more than 50% of modern females, at least in America, but also probably in Europe as well, more than 50% are favorable to infanticide. They are favorable to murdering your children. The more than half of women say yes to that. They vote yes for that. Number one. More than half of women, maybe even 60%, are voting Democrat and voting for political parties which flood our nations with rapists. So women are promoting politics, promoting a dangerous society filled with sub-Saharan, subhumans who would rape them at any chance. This is really strange. I mean, this is where the theory comes from that women want to be raped. Because why are they favoring these politics that favor rape? That, like in Sweden, the rape rate in Sweden is the highest in Europe. And who did that? The women in Sweden voted for these political parties, and they voted to flood their own country with people who are known to be severe rapists. That's number two. Number three, the majority of violent pornography is consumed by women. This is a statistic that should make you very concerned about women in general. Like, the book, 50 Shades of Grey, was sold almost exclusively to women. And it's a book about violent sex, about BDSM. And why is that? there's some extremely unhealthy things happening in the world of women today that you need to avoid. And one of those things is the tendency to want to be beaten, to want to be raped, to have a violent situation. So this is another thing that we've lost. We've lost our right to vote, to control our countries, and now that right to vote has gone to women, and they are voting to basically cancel all the efforts of men to establish our nations and to establish our borders, and they're flooding our nations with foreigners who want to rape the women. And the next point I'll make is the tendency to lie. Like, we all know that, the word yellow means, refers to Chinese or refers to Asians and their stronger tendencies to lie. But these people don't lie nearly as much as women do. Women lie just all the time. And especially in a court of law. And so another statistic that should make you really, really concerned is, okay, in England they did a statistic, 10% or more of men who are fathers are raising children who are not their own children, and they don't know that they're not their own children. 10%. That's a pretty high statistic. It could be as high as 20%. They lie in court. They accuse men of rape, and 3 out of 4 of those accusations are judged to be false by a judge in a court of law. That's a pretty scary statistic. So if you're screwing around with women, or you think you're being manly by doing these seduction rituals, you read these seduction websites, and you want to screw around with women, and you think this is a sign of success in your life, you could end up going to jail, you could end up being fined, you could have false accusations lodged against you. So 3 out of 4 is a low statistic, because even the 1 out of 4 that end up being judged as being true accusations, I don't know, I would judge maybe half of those to be false as well. Because very little evidence is requested in a court of law now for rape and molestation charges. Simply, you can be accused at any time, and they're known to be liars in court. And they're so well known to be liars that it just doesn't count when a woman lies in court. A man will do 7 years in prison in America for having lied to a judge. But have you ever heard of a woman who falsely accused a man of rape, and then she was put in jail for 7 years? You've never heard of that. That's impossible. Why? Because the judges think, well, she's a woman, she lies. That's just normal, right? And YouTube would block this video because I just said that. But that's true, right? The truth hurts, and the truth gets you blocked on YouTube. And so when you're dealing with a woman, she is much more likely to cheat, steal, lie from you. So in the political arena, we turn again to our original point. In Nazi Germany, the men had more chastity, much more chastity, so they could sort of reclaim their nation, they could reclaim their women, they could reclaim their situation. But we're not at that phase, are we? So if you want to solve the Pharisee problem in your country, you're saying, well, all our banks are controlled by Pharisees, short men in little hats biting baby dicks. What do we do about these people? Well, the Pharisees are a smaller problem than the women. So if in your nation you have more white knights, more cucks, you've got to solve that problem first. And how do you solve that problem first? By example. You go for NoFap. You stop the porn, you stop the masturbation. You support the politics of censorship. You say we should censor porn in my country. You should be active in politics. You should say, actually, all that Pharisee crap, this pornography that Pharisees are literally using in Israel against Palestinians as a weapon, that should be like in China, like in Iran, like in other places. That pornography should be illegal. You should be severely punished for possessing pornography, for sending pornography. You need to support those politics and support other men in NoFap and to get them a healthy brain to get strong again. We reclaim the nation, and then the third step would be we reclaim the women. But that's a long way away, and it's maybe never coming. Yeah. Let's talk about circumcision for a minute, about the evilness of women. Today, legally, in most countries, it's the mothers who decide to circumcise or not circumcise boys. And they will only circumcise men, only circumcise boys. And they will only consider this to be a decision for men, right? Like they decide more than half of women are favorable to abortion and infanticide. Well, how many women are favorable to circumcision? More than 1/3 of men in the world are genitally mutilated. And biologically, the responsibility of the health of a child goes to the mother, right? The father protects the home, he protects the land. But the mother, in all of the mammal species, the mother has the responsibility to protect her children. And what do we have? We have more than 1/3 of the world's men are genitally mutilated, right? So what is the quality of our women today? What are they doing? And look at genital mutilation in the news, like when a man gets kicked in the balls, or they talk about circumcision, they make it a topic on TV. The women are laughing. They think it's funny, right? How about the stories of, a man getting mutilated by his wife? She cuts off his penis with a knife. They talk about it on a talk show. They talk about it on the news. And what do the women do? The women laugh about it, right? They laugh about it. You have to consider that. You have to consider this general cruelty of the female that makes it, that it should make you think twice about committing to a female, And I will add that the Bible is still true. God made the woman as our companion. So you can have as many female friends as you want. And when you go NoFap, believe me, you will have so many female friends, you won't know what to do with them, really. And they'll love you because you're not using them. You're not looking at their tits. You're not grabbing their ass. You're not talking about disgusting topics with them. Because actually, women are just as disgusted with themselves and disgusted with this sexualized society as you are. So the minute you go NoFap, you're going to start to meet virtuous women. You'll meet women that are of a much higher quality. But again, you'll only meet these women and you'll only maintain them as friends until you maintain your chastity, until you maintain your NoFap situation. And the second that lust kicks in, you start losing your money, you get into all kinds of social trouble, you have it all goes downhill from there. So remember, brothers, Brüdern, you are more important than this. Take your job, your success, your personal spirituality, your personal work much, much more seriously than a curvy sponge, a slime cave, these things that want to steal from you, cut you down, and bring you down to earth instead of letting you rise to heaven. Well, if we talk about the physical benefits of celibacy, if you ask me about that, I would say I would definitely be dead if I did not have celibacy. Simply something that you don't learn spending most of your time with your mother, very little time with your father, and like in my childhood, that was never taught to me that that I have to absolutely avoid pornography, masturbation, and sex with women to stay healthy or go to hell. And I think that's something that it's pretty serious when we talk about hell. It's real. Hell is real, and you feel really, really bad, and you're not going to a good place when you have your mind in the gutter and you're using that Pharisee pornography. So I went to China and I had total freedom. In China, there's no law, and obviously there's women everywhere, and you can do anything you want in China. And it was in China that I realized that this sex thing, masturbation thing is it's really bad news. And I was going to die pretty much. I had all of my whole body was just a mess. I had all kinds of physical problems. I can't even remember all of the physical problems. I maybe had 12 different serious illnesses when I was in China. And it's true, China is really polluted. It's a very stressful environment. It's really noisy, and it makes you sick because you can't go to sleep. Many problems in China. But it's your testicles and the sperm, but the energy of sperm before it even becomes sperm, that prana and energy is essential to maintain the male body. You have to have that always repairing the damage, the problem. If you can't get to sleep at night and the next day your body needs to recover, well, what is that power? Where do you get that power to recover from a bad night's sleep? Where do you get that power? Well, for a man, that comes from the testicles. So you have to be very much in control of your creative energy as a man to be healthy. Now, I had all of these problems, and I was not recovering, and I didn't know why. I wanted my spiritual freedom more than anything else, and I tried no FAP, for a month, and that just totally changed me. It completely changed me. So basically, the sperm is like the marrow, your bone marrow. So this is what makes your blood, what regenerates your whole body. And I would say it repairs your body at a spiritual level and organizes the cells and things at a spiritual level. And if you create the sperm, you're already in trouble. If you have the physical sperm, you're already in trouble. You're losing, even if you have it in your body, it's basically like vomit. It's like a drunk person and he throws up and the vomit is in his mouth. So you don't ever want to look at pornography or tempt yourself or get interested in sexual things in the way that you start producing sperm, because once that sperm is produced and in your body, it'll be very difficult to keep in, and it'll be very difficult to utilize. So it's most important to be celibate at a spiritual level to maintain the physical benefits and to maintain good health for the male. So you need to make sure that you delete all of your pornographic or sexy images on your computer You set your search engine to very strict, like as if you were a child. You have to make sure that you don't see those things, contact those things. You should maintain that state in order to stay physically healthy. Because what are you doing with that? What are you doing thinking about having children, which is an enormous physical expenditure, when you should be working, having creative energy, praying, doing your spiritual work? So you want to direct all of that energy to the healthy things to stay healthy. And yes, if you lose a sperm, you'll notice it is made of phosphorus and other things. There's people that chemically analyze what is in it, and I would say that's not even half of what it really is. You lose a lot more spiritually from it, but from what you see physically, it's practically nerve tissue. It's like nervous tissue that you're pulling out of your body and losing, because your nerves in your brain and the nerves in your heart are all made of this phosphorus and these rare minerals and things. So how does that all happen? It's just a natural process. When you maintain your creative energy, your whole body will regenerate naturally. Diseases you think are incurable, like psoriasis, they say psoriasis is not curable. Herpes, if you get herpes sores on your mouth, your genitals, or in other places on your body, a doctor will tell you herpes type 1, herpes type 2, they say they're incurable. You have to buy an expensive cream and pay this money every 2 months. And no, you don't. All of those diseases cure themselves naturally when your body has the proper resources. And to have that proper resource, you have to stay chaste and have a pure mind. That's what I would say. So one thing I noticed also was the deepening and the higher quality of the improvement of quality in my voice with celibacy. After a year of celibacy, I contacted Julian Lee and I started to do audios for him. And I started to record audios for him in the morning when my voice sounded the best. And these audios today, I think they sound really great. I think they sound amazing. There's a strong, deep, rich quality to the voice. The voice quality goes down a bit if after I've been running a lot, or if I feel tired or something, the voice quality will go back down a bit. And it also depends on how clear my nose is. So I could do a handstand or clear out my nose and do these things. I could improve the quality of my voice. 2 years ago, I was singing in like 4 or 5 different choirs at the same time. I was singing in 2 or 3 different church choirs, then a gospel choir, and then also in a general choir that sings popular traditional songs and also church songs. And I constantly get compliments on the quality of my voice. Intonation, the accuracy of the intonation, and the general quality of the voice. The quality of your voice is essential for your success. Like, why is it that when a celibate man talks to people, he gets more attention and he is more likely to have success in his human relations? Well, people will hear you when you have a shrill and unpleasant voice. They don't want to say yes to your ideas. They don't want to help you. They don't feel good about that. If you're fapping, you don't have confidence, your eyes are red, they lack the moisture. If you're looking at people with these low quality eyes and you're not concentrated, you're saying here and there, you're less likely to get help, you're less likely to have people agree to your ideas and do projects, great projects with you. And this is one of the main reasons why people who are not celibate are simply not going to have very much success in their life. It sounds kind of superficial, but it's true. It's more important that you remain concentrated when you talk to people, that you have these beautiful eyes you get from meditation and chastity, and that you have a charismatic voice that people like listening to. That those are keys to your success, really. In my personal experience, I had a lot more physical strength with the celibacy, and I can lift things, push things, pull things, a lot heavier things than I ever have before. And here in this place where I live, I have reformed all of the land by hand. I've created terraces with the dirt. I've created walls of stones and boulders. And I've done, really crazy things. I pulled out stumps of trees, trees that are like 60, 70 years old. I've done these pretty crazy things with my physical strength. And so I don't know if I can give how many examples I can give. It started when I was in China. Like, there was this drunk man in the elevator who wanted to give me problems. And I grabbed his sleeves. He had a winter jacket on. I grabbed his sleeves and I ripped his sleeves from the jacket off with my bare hands, like that. And I thought to myself the next day, that was pretty crazy. Another thing I did was my house lock was broken and the key wouldn't turn. And I turned the key so hard that I broke the key in half. Like, that's pretty crazy stuff. And there's instances like that. If we talk about the famous people, athletes, definitely the secret to their success has to be celibacy. They won't talk about it very much. You won't hear about it very much. Like that, Mike Tyson was celibate for 6 years before he became a champion. The boxing people, there's Cassius Clay. He publicly mentioned that celibacy was his key to being a champion. And it's also interesting in Tyson's case that when he gave up his celibacy, he met a woman named Robin Givens. Robin means to steal, robbing. He lost the championship. After he met this woman, he lost the championship. He lost his title. He was accused of rape. He was put in jail. Talking about the physical problems I had, I had insomnia. So if you're not sleeping well, that's a serious problem. And if you're masturbating, you'll probably have a lot more nervous system issues, including insomnia. So consider NoFap also for curing your insomnia. The other talent that I have rediscovered that's physical, with the celibacy is my skill in running. I've been a runner since I was 8 years old. I've been running with my father, who was a champion at a college level runner. My father is, and he taught me how to run. He taught me how to sort of judge my pace and to get good long distance times and scores. And now I'm running in the mountains here in Italy, and I run completely barefoot. I'm always barefoot, and I'm not sure if I could be a barefoot mountain runner if it weren't for the blessing of celibacy, nofap, and the whole being a man, being a man, feeling you're a man, and having all the benefits of being a man. I had basically a bullet of wood shot in my eye that seemed to have completely destroyed my eye. When I looked in the mirror and I was looking at myself in the mirror, this eye was completely closed. The eye inside was completely smashed, and I see pretty well with it. I see colors. I see clearly at certain distances my right eye, and I'm really amazed that my right eye has recovered as much as it has. Last year, or a year and a half ago, I was chopping wood and I split my right foot. I split my right foot open with an axe, and the axe went in really deep, and my guest here said that she could see to almost through my foot. I mean, the wound was very deep, and I had pretty much split my foot. And I recovered from that. I did not go to the hospital. Many people thought I should have had like about 7 or 8 stitches. I did not get stitches. I squeezed the foot together physically, and I bandaged it together tightly, and I put some herbs or things on it, and I prayed over my foot for some time, and my right foot is completely healed. It looks completely normal, and I have a scar that's maybe about 3 centimeters long. And that's where I had split my foot open with an axe. And then there's the fact that I survived 16 years in China, which is a really noisy, dirty place, and I'm still alive. That's an amazing thing. And I don't think many people could survive that country for so long in the phase that it is in right now. I had problems, let me say, with my skin, my teeth, my joints, a lot of things. And after trying for a month, I had more of a spiritual experience. I understood that I was getting a lot of new energy, and I was feeling much, much better. It was not yet understood to be a physical thing. But then I started keeping a diary, and that's really how I got all of my habits in order. So every evening I would write how my day went and what I was doing, and I would plan the next day. So I would also, every night I would have to confront what I did that day. Was it what I planned to do the day before? So I have to plan things out, and I have to reflect back on what I did that day. Was I doing well in my enterprise of chastity? And I kept that diary for 2 years. So the first 2 years were difficult enough that I had to really keep a close eye on myself and to talk to God every night. I wrote my diary to God, because it's much more important what He thinks than what you think. And I think I cured all of those things except one, which was sort of a digestion problem that I had. And the digestion problem felt a bit better after the first few months, but I had to wait a long time. Then the prostate. The prostate is an interesting male organ. The prostate is something that if you've used it, it takes a lot of damage. So after you try celibacy the first time, your prostate will probably feel sore. And that's a good sign. That's a really good sign. That means your prostate is healing. And you have to have patience about that. You need at least 1 month, but maybe 3 months to wait. My prostate was really, really sore, and I couldn't even really sit down for a month. But I kept the faith. I understood that my body was healing, and that's a really important thing. It's not to see it as a bad sign, but as a good sign. And the regeneration of the male body absolutely requires this creative energy, and I'm really sorry that I discovered it only when I was 31, 32 years old, So now I've been celibate for 13 years, and I'm 44 years old, and I feel really good. I work really hard on the land, and I've earned all my money, my property, and I'm much better off than my peers. People of the same age as me have a lot less going for them, and I don't have to work very much for money. I make less than 3,000 euro per year, and I already own my house. I own my property. I'm self-sufficient for heating, for water, and some of my food. Your body, your male body part, your creative essence, are your family jewels. Those are your family jewels. And those are literally your bank account. So when you're looking at how much wealth, how much power you can accumulate as a man, you have to return again to your creative essence, which in cruder terms are your balls. So you have to learn no-fap sexual self-control before you can start to accumulate wealth and power. And the second step after that is brotherhood, teamwork, cohabitation. So we need to be living together, and we need to be working together more. Why? Why are you not accumulating wealth? Well, it could be that you're living in this big house all by yourself, and you're paying all that rent, you're paying all your bills, and you're doing all your work by yourself. Why not share all of that with 2, 3 other men? Start doing projects together, artistic projects, a band, a music band, videos, film, propaganda. Why not do projects with self-sufficiency like I'm doing here? We have a project of self-sufficiency. We're doing farming, gardening, just in general, getting mostly off-grid and away from the government control. That's one of our project ideas. We're working together on these things. If you're all by yourself, you're that much weaker. That's another problem. Now, what if you get a group of men together, and one of your men is jerking off or something like that? He becomes the one who's lazy, who won't wake up in the morning, who won't do the work necessary to realize your project. And it would be an error to tell him that he needs to change his habits, like to tell him to that it's a rule you must get up by 9 in the morning, or you must be. That's the wrong way to go. The root of the problem is that he's masturbating or something. In this house here where I'm sitting, we keep all the doors open, right? We sleep on the floor, everybody's on the floor, the door is open. If you use a computer in our house, everybody sees what you're looking at on that computer. And if we don't, I would, as the master of this particular house, I would tell you to turn that computer around. I think it's not that I don't ever trust you, but it's that we are brother's keeper. There's nothing that you could be doing for business or work on that computer that you should be ashamed of, right? So, when you live here and you stay with me, there's no possibility that you will get your own personal space where you can lock yourself up, turn into a corner, and have the computer screen aimed into the corner and to start jacking off to porn. It's impossible in this house, right? So, that's the root problem. Now, we have other rules in this particular house. Maybe it'll scare you. It's too alpha for you. But we don't drink. We don't smoke. We don't do drugs. We don't eat meat. But those things come later. Once you're chaste, once you're not jerking it off or whatever. You can take up these challenges. You can control yourself in other ways much more easily. So it's not so hard to do these things, to maintain these things. And let's talk about it. My first year in celibacy, I regained my health. I was about to literally die of physical problems before I went celibate. My second year of celibacy, I became semi-famous, and I also became semi-rich. I say semi because I absolutely avoid being really famous, and I absolutely avoid being really rich. I don't want to be famously rich or famously famous, because it starts to turn into a negative thing if it gets to be too much. And I think everybody should probably understand that. But I have enough fame that my enemies can't come to my property and attack me. The state can't come and make me a victim on my own property, because too many people know who I am. They know my address. They know my phone number. They know all of these things. So, if you're not doing a lot of online trolling and posting, which I think might be an era that's already kind of passed with the censorship and everything, I would recommend against anonymity. You want that fame. My second year, I got semi-famous. I got semi-rich. I bought a home in Nanjing, China, which had a lot of economic potential. So I bought an apartment there, and the apartment doubled or tripled its value in about 8 or 9 years that I was living there. And then I sold it, and I bought an actually beautiful home, big home, in an actually beautiful, great country, which just completely blows my mind. I can't believe it's true. I can't believe Yahuwah gave me this amazing, amazing opportunity. I can't believe it's even reality, but it is. So I'm a very rich person. And I don't have that much income. I don't want very much income, because what do you do then? Then you start paying all these taxes, and you're feeding SOG. Now, when I say SOG, I mean slut-occupied government, gynocentric government. You're living in SOG, and they're telling you you need to make SOG bucks. SOG bucks in Europe would be the euro. Well, guess what? I don't want the euro. I want to have actual food and energy and things I can touch and sense, essentials for life. Get back to nature, get back to Yahuwah and Yeshua, and understand my position in this incredible stationary flat earth. I want to understand my position in this place. And I have no problems with money. I have no problems with fame. I have no problems with power. I am not scared of this society. I am new in this town. I'm new in this part of the world. In this zone. I'm new here, but I'm not scared. I'm not scared about my situation. I'm not scared about who hates me, who my enemies are. I don't have social conflicts. I don't have problems. And celibacy gains you social respect because you're not screwing other people's daughters. And this is a key to your ability to be respected socially and therefore to have money and power. You are not going to gain more wealth, more power if you are absolutely not respected. And you cannot be respected by anyone when you are humping their daughter. And when you open up porn and you've already seen 20, 30 different naked women, all of those women have families. They all have fathers, they all have brothers. And guess what? After you've looked at that, they hate you for what you're doing. They hate you. In the spiritual world, nothing is a secret. Yahuwah sees everything you're doing. And if you're going to start looking at other people's daughters in this lustful, evil way, then when you go down into town in your small village or you go into your big city, other men who are also fathers and brothers of other women, for some unspeakable reason that they cannot explain, they don't trust you, they don't like you. Why? You have this energy, you have this vibration that you are absolutely willing to victimize, dehumanize their own daughters, their own sisters. So, first, if you have a problem with lust, imagine the woman you're lusting at being your own sister, your own mother, the sister or the mother, the cousin of your best friend. Or imagine her, better yet, imagine her as a man. That's a good idea. Because she will probably be reborn in this world and she will probably be reborn as a man. This happens in reincarnation, right? And she was a man in a past life. So imagine that woman as a man and rethink that whole lusty attitude, rethink what that is doing to your society, and rethink how you are planning to get respect from that society, and watch it go. It's really interesting. If you have a long streak with celibacy, you should be getting richer. You should be having less problems with money. Try celibacy for a month, 6 months. Tell me what happens. Tell me what happens to your bank account. Tell me what happens to your fame, your respectability. And then watch what happens when you fail. Watch what happens when you go back to your old problems. Tell me what happens. Tell me how much money you're losing. Tell me how many things are breaking. How many people have become your enemies, right? It takes a little observation to understand this. And guess what? Most of the truth in the world is not to be understood by books. You're not going to understand it by reading it. You're not going to understand it logically. You have to try it. You have to physically try NoFap to understand what we are talking about. And if you won't, what's your problem? Is it because you think it's dangerous? Are you going to explode if you try NoFap? Are you going to turn into a ticking bomb? No, it's not going to kill you, so give it try it. Try it and write down what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. And when you try it, absolutely imagine that you are never going to have a lustful experience again for the rest of your life. That is very key, very important to the experience of chastity. You have to envision yourself, see yourself as a man who will never have this kind of a relation with anyone else ever again. Imagine it. Try that on. Try it on like a new a new suit, like a new outfit. Go into society with this idea. I don't do that, right? Try that idea on. Okay, the next thing we need to talk about is feminism and gynocentrism. So I'm seeing probably way too much material about how illogical, wrong these two things are, and we're not really quite getting to the source of the problem. We're not really quite understanding why we have feminism and gynocentrism. The reason we have these two horrible things is because our government and our police force and our banks, etc., are all being run by cucks and white knights, manginas, and we as men have not teamed up together as a gang, as a group, as a force to be reckoned with that claims our rights, claims our possessions, claims what is truly ours as people. So basically, in the hierarchy, men are superior to women, and we are basically, a lot of men are basically allowing women to run amok. It's like having bought a puppy and just basically letting the puppy go along untrained, pee in the house, bite the neighbors, do all of these things. And so there's no discipline and there's no clear understanding that we are in charge in this society today. And that's the root cause of gynocentrism and feminism's existence in our society. So the first thing we need to do is to roundly condemn the white knights and cucks. We need to get into situations together as brothers and friends, go out into public, and when there is a conflict between a man and a woman, or any man, any woman, we need to always take the side of the man first, even when we don't understand what's going on. We need to have the instinct to stick with our own kind, to support our own kind, and to reclaim our rights as a group. So, classic example, we return to the problem of circumcision. It is an extreme affront to masculinity, yet all of society, which is still male controlled, male dominated, circumcision for men is still supported. And whereas women respect themselves a lot more, and if you had proposed, like at one time, a pinprick of the vulva, they just go nuts. They would have a riot. The women would not allow any form of even touching the genitals of a baby girl. Just would not even be allowed. So we need to, in this sense, we need to learn from women. We need to learn that we should respect ourselves a lot more. We should respect what we are in our bodies and things, and reclaim our rights as they are. Your first problem when your wife or your girlfriend calls the police, calls a SWAT team, calls the government, calls a lawyer, your first problem isn't really her. It's these white knights and these cucks that are helping her, that have decided that without any evidence, they're going to support her over you. They'll believe her story over yours, even though women have statistically been proven to lie a lot more than men. So that's what these things are going to. Now, again, like feminism, the roots of feminism literally are the little men, the short men in little hats. They're definitely the ones responsible for creating this idea of feminism and singling out advantages of being a man and making women jealous for our advantages and leaving them with absolutely no responsibilities, and actually many less responsibilities than they've ever had in history. But that's not the root of the problem. The root of the problem is first that you are not manly enough, that you are a cuck, right? That's the first problem. If you're watching pornography, you're literally watching a woman that you think is attractive, and then you're watching a naked man. That's faggotry. You're watching a naked man do that woman. It's cuckoldry, right? So by looking at porn, you are both a fag and you're a cuck. So you have to. And who are you? You're a man and you're touching yourself. So you like touching men, you like touching penises, right? And then what are you watching? You're watching naked men and you're seeing their. I mean, are you seriously okay with that? Think about this. Think about the implications of this. This is why our grandfathers never did this. You have to be very, very serious about this. This is a very serious thing. And once you are no longer a cuck, you need to change that whole perspective around and say, look, cucks are my enemy. Cucks are the problem with society. And maybe you've been chaste or nofap for 3 months. Maybe you've done it for 3 years. But at some point, you will become more righteous. And the chaste man is not only one who enforces the law, but he is the law. This is something we need to understand as well. A chaste man is the law. He is the flesh and blood of law, right? And he understands everything in life from this basic creative principle. And he respects his body, he respects himself. And once enough of us, it doesn't even take that many of us, but once enough of us turn into a gang, any cucks and white knights that are left will be too scared to go white knighting for women in public. They'll be too scared of us. They'll be like, okay, do whatever you want, because they'll be hiding their heads. They'll be afraid of our power. We need to reclaim that power. And again, we need to reclaim this power before we even enter into the discussion of family life, children. Because if you don't have the basic right to control your property, you don't have the right to keep your children alive in your society. Your first problem isn't that you're not having enough children. Your first problem is that you don't have enough political rights, enough power. You are too weak to become an alpha male. You are too weak to be passing around your genetics everywhere. Even if you're the strongest man in your town, if you have not yet formed a gang, if you do not have enough brothers that physically live with you, physically work with you, you're still nothing, right? Something we need to understand here. So when you become chaste, you also need to use that intelligence to develop your skills to accept other white men as your brothers, to accept some of their problems, to be flexible with them, flexible enough that you can live with them, do projects with them, right? Because if you start saying, well, being a gang or being a group is a sign of weakness, in these days, no. If you do not have a gang, a posse, you're the weak one. That's what's going to happen. And no, the isolated man who listens to Alex Jones, who has a collection of guns all in a bunker and he's in a hole in the ground, literally, he's nothing. He is no more powerful than that mole in the ground, right? And he can be bombed or invaded or killed or divorced or whatever. Alex Jones was divorced by his wife, and She still probably stole a lot of his property, but I'm just saying it. You take all of your super male vitality pills, you're still not getting to the root of it. You have to be nofap, and you have to make a lot more friends and stay close with them and be a team with those friends in order to stop feminism and gynocentrism. So you'll discover chastity a lot in true religion. And the true religions start from Hinduism, Buddhism, and then we arrive at Christianity, and then we arrive at National Socialism. In Christianity, our point of reference is our traditions, our solid traditions, and what we learn in church, and what is first and foremost the teachings of our forefathers. And then we refer to the Bible as a point of reference. I wouldn't believe absolutely everything in the Bible, but it's a really good point of reference. High quality literature is something we should be reading and studying a lot. And in the Bible, there is quite a few references to chastity and its importance. First of all, Jesus Christ himself says, if I'm not mistaken, in the book of Matthew, he says that for anyone that has the capacity to accept celibacy, that is the best choice. And for those who cannot accept it, they should have a family. This happens to be also the same statement that Buddha made about this thing, about this subject. And then we have the words of Saul or Paul, who says that it's good not to touch a woman, but chastity is, again, I think in Corinthians he confirms that it's better to be chaste even than to have a family. And then we have St. John, who talks about the seed of the Lord within you. So seed is a special word in the Bible, and it's talking about that creative force of the male. And we just need to come to the Bible with chastity, and we need to learn chastity from the Bible, because if you read the Bible without chastity, you won't understand what it's really talking about. It takes a certain amount of intelligence to understand what the Bible is getting at and what these respected authors are trying to say, what they're trying to say. St. John was saying you do not have the chance for salvation, if I'm not mistaken, without the seed of the Lord within you. Within you, not without you. You don't go buy seeds at the store. He's talking about seed within you, your creative force. And he's saying those of us that are saved, that have the possibility to go to heaven, that have the possibility of all that is good, it is because the seed of the Lord is within us. So that's from one of the books of John. And if I can't quote the scripture exactly with the numbers, forgive me, but that's where I'm at right now in my Bible study. I've read the Bible probably 3 times, but not at the level where I remember all of the numbers of the passages. And we take, as Christians, we take our very first example of purity and chastity from Jesus Christ himself. And that's why it is a very serious blasphemy, the whole, idea of, Jesus ever having children, or, all these other kinds of rumors and blasphemy. Because Jesus was a Nazarene, and he was also in white clothes, and he was a living embodiment of chastity. He was somebody that brought the virtues of chastity to the world and preached those virtues to other people. Now, people sometimes contrast this with Genesis, be fruitful and multiply. I would just add that the Bible and Christianity is first and foremost a spirituality. It is not a material practice. So when people think fruitful and multiply and they think of, banging lots of women and having lots of children, I suppose polygamy, being a Muslim, I suppose those people would be the most virtuous in the world according to Christianity. But that's not true. You don't win in the world, and you're not being fruitful by breeding yourself like a rat. And in a gynocentric society where you're going to get your children killed, stolen from you, your house stolen from you. Anyway. So the idea of being fruitful and multiplying in Genesis was probably probably physically having more children, because that was the stage we were at in the world where God wanted more population. And Yahuwah was thinking about, this whole stage that we were on. Today we have more than enough people, and we need to take care of the people who are already here. So very famous and virtuous Christians were the Shakers, for example. And the Shakers had a separate part of the village for men, a separate part of the village for women, and they were all chaste. And people said, well, they were chaste, so they didn't have children. They couldn't propagate their religion. But really what they did was save the orphans. They took in people that had problems. They took people that were abandoned and they saved them, and they did charity. And then those people became converts and propagated as well their religion and their understanding of Christianity. So they didn't die out because of chastity. They died out because Abraham Lincoln basically burned down their homes. They died out because Franklin Roosevelt persecuted them. Whereas here in Europe, or here in Italy where I am, a monastery is a very common thing. And usually, if it's a true monastery with true monks, they're all celibate, and they maintain the monasteries for centuries and centuries. And they keep going forward by improving the quality of the people around them and promoting greater projects, and that's where the creativity comes in. So that's where I see celibacy and its role in the Bible and in Christianity. It is the basis of our religion, and it's the basis of our people, the sanity and the health of our people. And it's only because we've lost this virtue that we are now in sparsely populated areas and being invaded and losing our territory, losing our rights as a people. And to reclaim these things, if we want, we need to reclaim chastity and reclaim our religion for ourselves. Well, if you've already had the red pill about women, about NoFap, if you've just been introduced and you're just beginning to accept this, there are some key concepts that you'll want to understand before getting really active in MGTOW, incel, and I don't know what else you would call them. We've got the Storm or Troll Army, all of these other boards and communities, 4chan, 8chan, things that Reddit that you might want to be involved in terms of commenting. You'll want to understand these comments, and you'll want to understand these fundamental concepts before getting really involved in these online communities. And first concept I want to introduce is hypergamy. Sounds sort of Greek, sounds a little bit strange. What is hypergamy? Well, hypergamy is basically women becoming uncontrollable sluts and whores, and they do that because of abortion, contraception, and abortion and contraception have made it that women no longer have to control their sexual impulses, and their destructive nature is no longer under any form of limitation. And that's what we call hypergamy, or if you're reading the Greek, it means sort of, hyperactive women being women. And basically, the first step, which we are already taking in the United States and which we are taking in Italy, other places, is to further limit or ban abortion. This is the number one issue. When abortion is seriously banned, that begins to limit hypergamy, that begins to limit the woman's capacity to go nuts and to destroy society, destroy our race, our nation, basically with her uncontrollable, unsatiable desires, material desires. And number two is contraception, which obviously, if women had more intelligence, even with abortion illegal, with just contraception, a woman should technically still be just as much of a whore. But it turns out to not be true. Even with contraception, women want the abortion thing because they are so often unsuccessful at using these simple yet very destructive devices. And what are the effects of hypergamy? What does that create in society? Well, on the one hand, you have hypergamy. On the other hand, you have involuntary celibates, incels. And these things go necessarily together. The more you allow the female to whore around, the fewer men are going to have a chance at having a girlfriend. So, huge numbers, huge percentages of our society's men are now unable to have a girlfriend. They're talking about the figure in the United States being around 40%, maybe more, of involuntary celibate men, meaning that they want to have a girlfriend and they can't find one. Why is this happening? Because when women whore around, they just want to whore around with more powerful, attractive men. And these powerful and attractive men are in fact not asked to marry. And so what happens is, under hypergamy, you have all the women, even the ugliest women, sleeping around a lot, and you have very few men getting any kind of action in the bedroom. And that's the result of hypergamy. And the solution to hypergamy, aside from you joining our NoFap team, from joining the KBH, from writing misogynistic articles, from joining in the battle against excessive female power and modern roles for women and men, the thing that you could really be doing is joining the political fights against abortion and contraception. That is the cure for hypergamy. You're basically going to have to knuckle down and tell women, like when you get in a political discussion, which probably shouldn't even be happening, but you're going to tell them, look, you need to close your legs, right? You need to know to close your legs and to keep them closed. That's what women need to start doing. The second concept I want to discuss is Briffault's law. Briffault's law talks about in any female mammal, the prejudice that they want something material, they want something to gain, physically to gain from their male partner. And in the second part of the law is that when the female gets that physical thing from her male partner, she then feels free to just leave him and change her male partner. And I guess that was a wordy explanation. Simply put, Briffault's law describes materialism, and that female materialism resulting in women being unable to love a man, and I don't believe women can really love anyway. It's not, when a man talks about love, we're talking about a kind of a devotion and a commitment to another person that a woman cannot be capable of when she's sending you, 20 different types of smiley faces, emotions every day on the instant messages. She can't maintain emotional stability. She can't maintain enough emotional stability to ever really love somebody else in the sense that we consider to be love. Consider also so many divorce cases, women getting divorced after 20 years of marriage, and with the push of a single button, boom, they pretend like they never met that man before in their lives. Now we need to consider this. Why does the Bible consider love to be, by default, impossible for women? So Paul defines the marriage roles. The man needs to love his wife, but the woman needs to obey her husband. This is a very interesting law because it presumes that women are incapable of love. It's saying that, okay, just forget about love with women, right? And it presumes that the women are out of control, that they need to obey their husbands because their normal instinct is to not do that, right? So I find the biblical laws, or the Pauline laws concerning marriage, to be very interesting about our traditions as Christians, and how they seek to, contain this whole chaos that we're under. The moment that you have no fault divorce, that you even have divorce, and then Briffault's law comes into effect, and women will divorce any man after any number of years, under any circumstances, as long as she has enough of the stuff, things, material, power, or position that she was calculating for. And before getting involved with women, you just need to be realistic about Briffault's law. If you think you've met a woman that breaks that law, you need to consider the very low possibility that you have met someone that breaks a law of biology. It's not possible. The third concept I want to discuss that you'll need to be prepared for is microchimerism. Microchimerism is the fact that the woman, as a sponge, is sponging and accepting the influences spiritually of her previous boyfriends. So a woman who is not a virgin is not only incapable of being a devoted wife because she has already shown she is unfaithful and she is changing men before you even decide to get married. There's also the problem that she has absorbed the influence of these men. And this is really disgusting, but if you have sex with that woman, you are also having sex with those other men. So we turn back to the kind of problem. You're another kind of anal sex expert if you get involved with a woman who has been involved with other men. Sounds extreme, doesn't it? But look into the science. Microchimerism, look into the science. If you have a child with that woman, you are raising another man's child because his DNA, his genetics, go into that child that she births supposedly for you. What are your chances of finding a virgin in this world? It's like zero. right? Another reason why marriage is impossible in the modern age. Because from many angles that you're looking at, true marriage is impossible to have with a woman who is not a virgin. And that's another topic we can get into. But microchimerism is something you can read about, and you can slowly digest just how disgusting it is. It's really, really disgusting. And we're not just talking about STDs. That's not the only thing we're talking about. When you exchange bodily fluids with a woman, she is absorbing your DNA, she is absorbing your influence, and she is passing through her slime and whatever to you the influence of her other men that she's been with. And last but not least, I would recommend looking into the Coolidge effect. Coolidge effect is certainly something that looks pretty negatively upon men. Basically, on a farm or in a zoo, biologists have noticed that the male of any mammal species simply has no sex drive for a female that he has already mounted or mated with. So look this up. This is called the Coolidge effect. Basically, the Pharisees have profited from this weakness in human character, but in biology, and has profited from a weakness in our government and in the quality of our men in general. And they are profiting from the fact that after we have slept with a certain woman, we don't want her anymore. She's uninteresting. People say, well, that's so cynical. I've been in love with my wife for, how many years? I don't know how to explain that. If you personally have been in a very long relationship and you feel actually sexually attracted to a woman you've slept with many, many times, you can still think back to that first time and understand that the Coolidge effect is still true. That in a certain sense, your intimate life with your lifelong, I was going to say lifelong partner, but that just sounds too gay. With your companion or friend, whatever, think back to that first time, and if you're continuing to be intimate with this woman, is it because you're trying to recapture that feeling of the first time? Because you're probably doing that. Or the first week that you were with her, that was the real high. That was the real stimulus. That was really what got you interested in her. And that's really what pushes your buttons. And everything after that goes in one of two directions. You're either going to feel limited, like you don't have another woman, so you're going to try to recreate that experience of the first week in the third year or the fifth year, which is completely impossible. Just stop doing that. Or you'll start screwing around, and definitely don't do that either. And what's the solution to the Coolidge effect? Well, celibacy. The solution to the Coolidge effect is to just stop it. Because Buddha, for example, he said about a lot of things, it's an endless cycle. The cycle of birth, sex, death, and rebirth. It will keep going on and on and on until you attain salvation. Enlightenment, but for Christians, we say salvation. You have to attain salvation. How are you going to attain salvation if you're continuously attached to this material world? How do you get to heaven? And that Coolidge effect isn't helping you, is it? And that Coolidge effect is a biological law. You cannot break it. If you have had a physical relationship with a woman, you will always feel more attracted to a fresh new woman, or in the human case, you will be in vain trying to recreate your first experience with that woman. And finally, I'm going to say one word about male virginity. If you want to look into some other things, interesting things that I found on the KBH website, we have an article about the value of any male in any species of mammal and how that market value literally goes down every time the male has been mated. So if you get into the farmer's market and you want to buy a bull, a virgin bull is worth like, I don't know, 5 or 6 times more than a bull that has been mated once. So if you're watching this video and you're still a virgin, please stay a virgin. Don't whack off. Don't start thinking, well, you're going to start to be normal by screwing around with women, or people will start to think you're cool, or that you're a successful man because you've been to bed with more women. That's not real. Your real market value goes way, way down with every single time that you're mated with a female. That's just market value, market reality. So when Jesus said that if you can accept it, accept celibacy for your entire life. And if you can't accept that, if you absolutely cannot accept that, then you should have a family. That's what he said, right? So the first thing that we need to understand on ourselves is if we can accept it or if we cannot. And I think for every spiritual teacher, we cannot emphasize enough that if you can lift that burden, if you can do celibacy, it is so much more worth it, right? I can't repeat that too much. Like if you go to the gym and your trainer tells you, try lifting 200 kilos, and there is a reality that you'll have to face. If you cannot lift that 200 kilos, then you have to start lighter. And I understand you, right? So we do have brothers, we have friends that have decided to get married, have decided to have to try to have a traditional life. So my suggestion on that is the same thing. Inform yourself about all around full life celibacy. Try living your life with that assumption and really, really try to accept celibacy. Now, if you absolutely cannot accept it and you have way, way too many fatherly instincts and too much desire to have a family or to try having a family, then I would recommend joining a strict religious community, like, for example, the Hutterites. Hutterites are like the Amish, but maybe they're doing a little bit better. I don't know. How about the Amish? How about getting yourself into a farming, self-sufficient community that is also very strict religiously? That community should also be sufficiently isolated, meaning you don't have cell phones, you don't have cars. Because when we talk about the reality of women is, if they have that cell phone, they're going to call the cucks. And they call the cucks and they say, oh, SWAT team, my husband beat me in the face. And then she has no proof and they put you in jail, right? They steal your house, they steal your kids. So it's no joke. If you get married and your wife has one of those cell phones and she drives a car, I mean, that's terrible to think about, but if your wife is out there driving a car, she owns a car, that's also going to be a serious danger to you. Like, she can always refer herself to the outside society, steal your house, or steal your kids. So think realistically about this, folks. You're going to have to, even if you choose to have a family in the society, because it is gynocentric and women are hypergamous, that's a long word for saying the sluts, you have to have a very realistic, very strict plan for finding a woman in the proper social context, right? I would sooner convert to Islam and marry a female, Arab, than I would marry a white woman in a white country, gynocentric, who has a cell phone and drives a car. I mean, I would do that. Because you realistically need to have social control that keeps the hierarchy where it should be. I'm not saying that Islam does that. It's just you as an adult, maybe as a convert, it could possibly do that for you. That's a really bad idea, but it would be less of a bad idea than getting married to a white woman in Australia, for example. That's a horrible, horrible idea. And what? Oh, you meet a white woman in Australia, she tells you, I'm traditional. I love farming too. I want to have 10 kids. Women lie to you, right? You remember the statistics we talked about. 3 out of 4 are lying about being raped in court, right? More than 50% will kill your children. So get back down to earth, think very realistically about this problem of trying to make a marriage somehow possible in a society that is absolutely trying to make it impossible for you. Number 2, when you do find that religious community that is isolated, where your wife is not going to have a phone or a car, you also need to be assured that they are homeschooled, that they go to school in that community. Because the second they go to public school, all of the education efforts you're trying to make with your children are going to be completely useless. The public school would destroy all of your efforts to educate your children and to make them good people. So in sum, absolutely accept chastity, celibacy for your entire life. If in any way possible you can accept it. 2, if you absolutely have to get married, go to a strict religious community and do not have a car or cell phone. 3, homeschool the kids that you're going to have. And 4, a possible option is being completely off grid, without a car, without the cell phone. You understand what I'm saying? If you get your future wife to accept those conditions, you live in a place that's not accessible by a car, that has no electricity, you work on solar panels, things like this, this is going to greatly help your chances of having a traditional family without too much outside cuck white knight interference. Let's talk a bit about the dangers of porn and masturbation. So the most fundamental danger of porn is basically reincarnation. So you were incarnated in this body, and I don't know if you realize that you had to learn everything you know up to today. You needed to learn everything that you're capable of doing today. So you needed to learn how to tie your shoes, put on your clothes, brush your teeth. You needed to go to school. You needed to learn every job that you've done all of that. And basically what pornography is you're watching a couple doing this horrible thing, and the interest in watching that is exactly the same thing that got you incarnated into the body you are in today. Basically, you were a soul without a body, and because you like watching porn, you went to somebody's bedroom and you started watching your parents effing each other. And that's how you get your body. That's how you get incarnated. So, where's this going? Do you really want to be reincarnated in that? And if your answer is no, then you have to stop watching porn. Kind of deep, right? What does watching porn have to do with my world getting worse? What does watching porn? Because you are going into people's bedrooms and you're watching them having a birthing experience, basically. You're trying to be born physically into this world. Deep discussion. Birth, sex, death, rebirth, they're all equal. If you like birth, then you like death. If you like sex, then you like death. If you like death, then you like birth. Because it's all the same damn thing, right? It's the same cycle. If you want to be saved, you have to get out of that cycle, right? What's the first step? To be completely uninterested in porn. That's the first step. If you're completely uninterested, honestly uninterested, somebody presents it to you and you tell them to screw themselves, then you are practically, in most aspects, probably saved for the rest of your life. You're probably ready to go. You understand what I'm saying? So, the danger of porn is that you will descend into hell, which is Buddhism, Hinduism, reincarnation, because the world is getting worse. Your world dream is getting worse. You're getting poorer, unhealthier. And then you descend into the lake of fire to pay for all the crimes you've committed against other men's daughters, other men's sisters. And masturbation. What's the problem with masturbation? Okay. Analyze the word. Masturbation means self-abuse. So our fathers believed that this was abusing yourself. Not an intelligent thing to do, right? If you wouldn't start just cutting your arm and bleeding, then why are you masturbating? Semen's worth a lot more than blood, right? Blood is necessary. It is necessary for your life right now. Semen creates a whole new life. So, if you ever see semen outside of your body, outside of a woman's body, that is a pretty serious problem you're looking at right there. That's like an abortion. That's like you just killed somebody. You just lost one of your children, basically. Ask yourself if it's worth it, right? This is a secondary topic, related topic. Spermatorrhea. Spermatorrhea means that you lose semen when you sleep, when you have a wet dream. Okay. Is that as bad as masturbation? No. Is it bad? Yes. What's normal? Once a month is normal. Like a woman's period, basically. Once a month in the city would be normal. In the countryside, you could probably clean enough and healthy enough mentally and physically to start not having your period, basically. But are you worried about not masturbating because you'll soil your clothes once a month when you sleep? That's a pretty silly thing to be worried about. Masturbation is the sin, not just on the astral level, but on the conscious level. The sin filters through every level of your being when you masturbate. When you have a wet dream, your problem is on the astral plane. It is a problem, but you may not believe me, but you can eventually gain control of that. You can gain control of your dreams, gain control of your power when you are dreaming. That's another subject, but if you have a wet dream, please do not get discouraged and don't think it's equal to masturbation. Another secondary topic, another tangent. is that when you are having an intimate life with somebody else and you are not having children, that too is masturbation. And is it as bad as just being alone, or is it better? Um, I think it's worse even if you're masturbating on top of somebody and then you put your waste, your excrement onto that person. That's really crazy if you think about it. Julianne Lee said, at that point, why wouldn't you put excrement on her? Why wouldn't you put your feces or your urine on her? See, that's not a good idea. That's not. So, sexing without having children is also masturbation. It's also insulting the woman that you're with. It's insulting to her. It's insulting to her dignity. I don't think she feels like a kind of an honor. When you just kind of jerk off on her body. I don't think that's a very healthy thing. But the debate could go both ways, but in essence, it's the same thing. It's the same argument. So those are the dangers and harms of porn and masturbation. One other aspect of fornication and cheating is to have intimate relations before marriage or without intending to have a child. So that is also an abomination. That is something that is also just as serious. So don't think that you're being smart by going to a prostitute or imagining that you are committing these acts in some situation which you consider to be less real. Why did Jesus say that on the spiritual level it's worse to sin mentally, spiritually, or in your heart than it is to actually do it? Look, if you're planning on doing these things, then it has to stop there. It has to stop at that level, especially at that level. And when it really happens, if there is prostitution, or if you do have these intimate relations before marriage, then basically you're still cheating the whole system of how to have healthy children, a healthy family, a stable family. It's especially important for a woman because she plays the role of the lock when we play the role of the key. This is true. Yet the law against abortion, against fornication, applies to both men and women equally. So we can't be going out and having these relations before marriage, and we want to be virgins going into marriage as well. We want to be, and this is going to promote a healthy, stable family. How is that? Because our virginity proves our mental stability, our capacity to control ourselves. Imagine if you've had so many girlfriends, you had 20 girlfriends before you get married. You imagine if your wife is going to be married to you, she has 20 ex-boyfriends. After you're married, what is the actual possibility of the two of you remaining faithful to each other? It's zero. Just remember that it's impossible. So no matter if you've fornicated before or not, you have to take the straight path right now. Renounce anything you've done wrong in the past and really latch on to that purity. No fornication. Remember that our ancestors were stoned to death for this, that it's a very serious thing. Remember too, you have the situation that when you're fornicating, it's always with women who come from other families, who have other social situations. Ridiculous but true story. In China, a man went to visit his daughter where she was going to high school or in college. And when he went to visit his daughter in college, he went to a bar and he asked for a prostitute. and his own daughter, his own daughter was offered to him. I have the video on my hard drive. Please, you have to get this in your head. There is no free ride. There's no free. Get that demon out of your head, the monkey off your back. No, you're not going to have this cocaine high orgasm for free. You're only going to get that if you give God, give nature, give your family, offspring, children, the next generation. At minimum, you're going to have to do that. And it's an enormous responsibility. Think about it very seriously. But if I were you, I'd just be celibate. I'd just say, look, this is the easiest way to control my passions. And I don't know about you, but that's my personality type. I just like a clear-cut answer when I ask myself a question. I don't like all these conditions or ideas or plans. Simply put, do I do this or do I don't do that? And that's probably why I got involved in celibacy. I just like the no answer. I say, okay, no. That's the simple way. So there's nothing like the country life to begin to feel the divine presence, to begin to feel that Yahuwah has created everything and that he is always present and he hears what we are saying and he understands everything, he knows everything. And so understanding that, what is our salvation? How can we be saved in this world? We basically have to prove to Yahuwah that we have courage, that we have strength, and we have to obey the law, right? And even Yahuwah obeys his own laws. So Yahuwah is a very fair entity. Yahuwah believes in his own laws, follows his own laws. He sits on the throne of his own laws and has the blue color of his laws on his cuffs, that those laws are always in the actions that he's doing. So we cannot arrive at the gates of heaven looking like a retard, looking like a druggie, looking scummy or strange. We need to see ourselves in the presence not only of Yahuwah, but also his judgment. When we get there, it also happens in Sheol. If we go to Sheol, the 3 days in Sheol, it gets decided if we go to heaven or hell, or if we are saved or if we're not, if we need to go through more penitence before or what. But just imagine yourself at the gates of heaven. Could you be in that state of impure thoughts and impure actions? Are you really going to get into heaven that way? It's just impossible. It's impossible. You can't do that. Are you going into heaven with a dirty magazine under your arm? No. Does Yahuwah think you should live with him and be present in his house, in his abode, when all you think about are these crazy, dirty things? It's impossible. You cannot be saved if you are not chaste. So the sooner you could start this process of cleaning your mind, cleaning your heart, and supporting these positive things, the more chance you will have at salvation. Now, there's a lot of doubt about it, but I don't know, I was a really bad sinner. Can I possibly do enough penitence to make up for my sinning? Could I possibly lead a pure enough, good enough life to to get to salvation and enlightenment? Look, those are questions that only Yahuwah can answer. He will answer those questions in his own judgment, in his own time. You or I cannot answer that question. All we can do is make the journey and try our best. And if you put in the time every day to attain that goal, you'll at least get closer to the goal. And that's what I can promise you with. If you're, for example, watching this video and you're already 50 years old, yes, your chance of salvation is not very high. But better late than never, always. Better late than never. Clean out all that sin as much as you can as possible. Climb up the mountain and try to get as high as you can. And it's true, you could die halfway up. You could not get to the top ever. But when you get, for example, if you have to be reborn, you could be reborn into this world. You'd have a better rebirth, a better chance in your next life. Because everything you do towards this noble goal is going to help you in the future, some way, somehow. And that's where faith comes in. Because what are we doing here? This world is pretty dirty, pretty screwed up, and I'm not entirely convinced that you want to do this all over again, especially in the next generation and in the future. And if we're in clown world, then what's waiting for us after clown world, I cannot even really imagine. And so salvation is a really important topic, something we really need to work toward. And I would really avoid purity spiraling, theology debates that get too deep about various translations, versions of the Bible, scriptural discussions that get really intense. One man accuses the other that if he believes that way that he cannot be saved, or if he believes the other way. I wouldn't get too involved in so many details about theology, but just keep the faith that if you remain chaste and you maintain the 10 Commandments, that absolutely God will accept you into his kingdom. That's what it's all about as far as I see, yeah.
I've had enough of these people. They're a bunch of Christian murdering scum, running giant death factories, keeping babies alive and selling their body parts. What more do you need to know about these people? I have to go out and face these scum. They literally crawl out from under rocks. They have green looking skin and they go running around screaming, we love Satan, we wanna eat babies. I had them on video. Hitler is in the creepy weird sick stuff man. She sleeps in the same room with that creepy weird woman. Mother has a towel over it.